Sahanavavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Apyayantu mamangani Sarvani Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Keneshitam patati preshitam manaha Kena prana prathama praiti yuktaha Keneshitam vachamimam vadanti Chakshushrotram kau devo yunakti Shrotrasya shrotram manaso manoyat Vacho havacham savu pranasya pranaha Chakshushaschakshuratimucya dhiraha Pretyasma lokadamruta bhavanti In one of his very effective ways of conveying, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa talked of God, giving the illustration of cooking. In cooking, you cut some vegetables, put them into a vessel filled with water, and then you turn the stove on, the fire is burning. As the heat makes the temperature rise, water also starts boiling, and what is more, the pieces of vegetables start moving. Different pieces of different vegetables are all there in the vessel. Just a minute ago, they were quiet. Water was quiet. So think of it, the pieces of vegetables, tomato or potato, what makes them move? Keneshitam patati preshitam manaha. Like this mantra asks, what makes the mind move towards its objects? You could ask there, cooking the vegetables, what makes these pieces of vegetables move? Somebody seeing it very superficially may just say, don't ask it, they are moving. They just move on their own. Is that so? Turn the oven off in a couple of minutes or even before that, everything becomes quiet. Turn the stove on, let the flames rise again, the pieces move. They dance. Shall we say, oh, it's the hot water which makes these vegetable pieces move? No, it's not water also. So what makes my hand move? First you may say, the hand moves on its own. Don't ask much questions. Or as Mumbaikar say sometimes, Jada socha mat karo. Yes. Hand moves. But then, if I insist, no, tell me. You may say, the hand moves prompted by a thought. Let me lift my hand. That is like saying the piece of vegetable moves driven by the hot water. But what makes the water hot? It's the flames of fire. What makes the mind also act? Something which is not part of the mind, not part of the body, not part of the senses or organs of action or the vital airs, something that stands apart and yet empowers all this movement. Countless analogies are given, and yet these things are not within the scope of analogies. These things are not within the ken of reason. Analogies do not prove a point. At best they show the possibility. Therefore, certain teachers abhor analogies and illustrations. They don't give any metaphors. But more often, teachers employ analogies. When somebody asked Ramana Maharshi, "Can you show us God?" he lifted a finger and said, "See here," and moved it. The visitor said, "What's this? You are just moving a finger." Then Ramana said, "Read Kena Upanishad. In that it is said, God is that which makes the hand move, the fingers move. Everything happens thanks to God." You know the good old Vedic saying, Tena vina trinamapi na chalati. Even a blade of grass does not move unless God wills it. The Upanishads have their own way of conveying that the supreme truth is not in the field of the known. The department of devotion, in the first place, uses the word God, and secondly, goes further to personify God, calling God he or she. And in our Sanatana Dharma on the Indian soil, we don't stay content even with that. In what is known today as Hinduism, we get God married also, we get God to have a son, 2 sons, we get God to do or to come in so many forms. More the merrier. So not only non-Hindus, but many Hindus also are puzzled. Why so many gods? I feel compelled to quote Ramana again. They asked him, "Does God have form?" Because in many disciplines, in many religions of the world, God is formless, nameless, attributeless, nirguna, nirakara and all that. Especially nirakara. Nirguna is less. Nirakara, no form. In the Semitic religions, worshipping God in an image is a sin. It's against the commandments. One of the 10 commandments says, "Do not worship me in any image." So they asked Ramana, you think God has a form? Rupa, as we call it. And Ramana questioned that visitor, let me first ask you, do you have a form? And the visitor said, sir, what are you asking? I am here in front of your eyes. I of course have a form, may not be very handsome, but still I am attached to it. This is the vagar I am putting, okay? The visitor did not give such a long explanation. Vagar, seasoning. We interfere with Ramana and Ramakrishna also and put our local seasoning to it. Anyway, the visitor said, sir, I have a form. And Ramana counter-questioned the visitor. If you, the Jivatma, the individual soul, with so limited powers, can have a form, what prevents God with infinite powers from having a form? If a senior accountant in some company in his wardrobe has some 20 sets of dresses, what prevents Ambani or Birla, Tata or someone else from having countless suits, dresses and so on? So Ramana's way many times was like that, to put the question back. Does God have form? Do you have form? If you can have form, he can have many. Therefore, elephant-faced, monkey-faced, with a bow in hand, with a flute in hand, male form, female form, and the saints and sages of India said God is Sakara also, Nirakara also. He is Saguna also, Nirguna also. He is this way also, he is that way also. Perhaps sometimes making the questioner more confused than ever before. The questioner would say, earlier I had only 2 doubts. Now after all these explanations from you, what is that? Namaste, namaste, hum nahi samajhte. Sanatana Dharma, called Hinduism, is very diverse, very accommodative. I would say the department of devotion or the path of devotion has its own nuances, its own ways, its own means. Countless are the ways in which people approach truth. And we admit, more the ways, more are the traps also. In countless ways, humanity errs. We get caught in some concepts. So here goes the mantra. There does exist a truth which may be pointed out as the ear of the ear, as the eye of the eye, and so on. And the second half of the mantra says, Atimuchya, giving up totally. What? By context, identification with these personality aspects. That is giving up. Atimuchya. So as I pointed out yesterday, the word by word meanings given by the Swamiji in the booklet in your hands adds a couple of words, as is the case here. Evam viditva, knowing thus, Shrotradishu Atmabhavam Atimuchya, having relinquished the false identification of Atman with the senses, etc. So, Shrotradishu Atmabhavam, 2 words are supplied originally by commentators like Adi Shankaracharya, and Swami Sarvanandaji picks a word here or a word there from Shankara Bhashya and inserts in the word by word meanings also to make it easier for us. So, giving up false identification. You know, in the Vedanta we have broadly this twofold division, Anatma and Atma. What is Anatma? Anything that you are not is Anatma. And Atma is anything that you are. The personality which has caught our fancy, this personality with which we are terribly attached, according to Vedanta, is Anatma. It's not us really. A sculptor sculpts a beautiful sculpture and he falls in love with that sculpture. He cannot go away from the Shilpa, from the Shila Kriti. He is unable to move away. What do you talk of it? What would you say about it? He has produced it. Having produced this sculpture, he could present it to somebody deserving such a beautiful piece and say, enjoy, and walk away. But he would not. The sculptor, the Shilpi, gets attached to a Shilpa, as it happens sometimes, not always. In the same way, the personality is a phenomenon, let us use the word, in awareness. You and I are one all-pervasive awareness. The pure self of the Atma, pure self that is Atma, is absolutely without any boundary, without any limitations, either time-wise or space-wise. The personality, on the other hand, has limitations. The body has limitations, and even thoughts have limitations. The unlimited, the infinite, is the substrate, is the adhara. The unlimited is the very basis upon which the limited appears and plays its role. You and I are the unlimited truth. But then, this is serious matter now. In the functioning of thought, in the functioning of this mind, a duality comes about. What is the duality we are talking about? The knower and the known. Every thought as it arises has a knower and the known. The Advaita Vedanta would say repeatedly, uncompromisingly, that pure awareness pervades the knower and the known. You and I are advised by these teachings to meditate upon this pure awareness which is in the knower also, which is in the known also. Sometimes you find a sculpture of a mother and child. Think of it. Stone is in the mother too and is in the child too, in such a sculpture. This illustration could be useful. The mother also is nothing but stone in such a sculpture, and she is holding a child, and that child also in that Shilakriti is stone only. So pure awareness is the knower, is the known and knowing, which is called Triputi, threefold division. Sometimes for simplicity we call it Dvaita, knower and known. Then there are other forms of Dvaita, division between God and man. As per context, the word Dvaita may be one of these. But in every knowing there is this division. However, if in you and me there is this liberating insight, there is this liberating intelligence, then in a non-verbal flash we would see that I am undivided. I am without this division. It is the play of the mind that causes the sense of knower and the known. There is the formation purely out of thought, purely out of thinking. Formation of what? Formation of a limited I, purely out of thought. I am sure most of you, if not all, have seen how birds pick up little twigs, little pieces of straw, little pieces of dried leaf. One by one they bring, and in a short while, even as you and I are watching, they build a little nest. Very artistically, birds prepare a nest. We would call that nest made of those dry twigs, pieces of straw, etc. In the same way, can you believe when you feel depressed, I am feeling so low today, or on some other occasion, when you feel like being on top of the world, mission accomplished, and so on, there is a sense of I which is low or high. This sense of I is built by not pieces of straw or dried twig. This sense of I is built out of memories, out of thoughts. And thought, like software, is nothing but, in software it is all codes, right? Codes, codes and codes. Zeros and ones ultimately. Here, what is a thought? It is consciousness with some apparent boundary. Suppose you were to burn some incense here. The smoke of the incense, the fumes of the incense would rise, and sometimes these fumes of the incense take a shape, maybe an S shape. And as they go up, they may take a U shape or a W shape. Would you attach much value to those shapes? You look at them and say, they are just fumes of the incense. Every thought of yours is like that. Just as you say, they are just fumes, and ignore those shapes. Can you say about all your thoughts, it's all just consciousness. Ignore the further descriptions. I take a white chalk piece and go to the blackboard, and write there on the blackboard, "You are wonderful." Your faces smile. I erase them. And with the same white chalk piece, on the same blackboard, I write, "You are all fools." You become grim. Did we come here to see this? Or whatever. Then I say, why did you read? This is a Vedanta exercise. Don't think this is just a Vedanta camp, it is a Vedanta workshop. When I wrote, "You are all wonderful people," I forgot to tell you the instruction. The Vedanta workshop expects you to just look at it as chalk powder and not read it. Unfortunately, you are educated. An uneducated person would not be disturbed at all. He sees chalk powder as just chalk powder. Whether you write "you are marvelous" or you write "you are fools." The problem with you and me is we are educated. We read it and interpret it. It is just chalk powder. Interpreting it as, he is saying we are very nice people. You smile. And next moment, he is writing, "We are all fools." This is terrible. So, what are we driving at? Thoughts are merely like the fumes of incense. So, a sthita prajna, even as thoughts arise because of some past momentum, looks at them, observes them, notices them with no reaction. A sthita prajna looks at a frown on somebody else's face without reaction. That is not much really. A sthita prajna looks at her own state of mind without reaction. This mind is in this state today, the state of the mind. If you go to the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, there is the description of Gunatita. And it is said there, a Gunatita welcomes any state of mind, Satvik, Rajasik or Tamasik. Agate swagatam kuryati. Come and let them stay. Let those states of mind stay for any length of time. When they go, he doesn't stop them. Why are you going? He doesn't say. Gachantam na nivarayet. There is a subhashita like that. Agate swagatam kuryat, gachantam na nivarayet. When somebody comes, say, "Come on." And he goes, maybe after an hour, or after a week, or after a year. No difference. You are going? Please go. How wonderful it is. And this with Sattvic, Rajasic and Tamasic states. Whereas you and I, after some study of scriptures, get attached to Sattvic state. And we want that state to continue. We get attached to Sattvic places like this. We get attached to Sattvic people. Because Sattvic means calm, balanced, fair, equanimous and so on. The Gunatita is not attached. For, to complete the examples, how does it matter if the fumes of the incense show an S figure or a U figure or a W figure or no figure? You just go straight. Fumes are just fumes. So, the Upanishad is driving at an insight. You and I may have this insight And for long we have invested in this personality, in this sense of me. Just like in the corporate world, you have investments. You invest in a company, maybe as a small shareholder, you buy a few shares, or you might be a what they call venture capitalist. You have made a sizable investment in some new enterprise, and you stand apart and see how it's coming along. If it's coming along well, you are happy. Otherwise, you frown. So these are examples. I am not talking about investments at all. I cannot talk more on that. I don't know much. But coming back to the Vedanta, do you see the significance of what I am saying? Every one of us has invested in this venture called I, the limited I. Where will I go? What will I become tomorrow? What about me? And so on. Even a brahmachari wanting to join the ashram asked the interviewing guru, "Sir, this program, this Vedanta course is for 2 years?" The guru said, "Yes." "Sir, after that what will happen?" The guru said, "This is adhyatma jnana, spiritual knowledge. You will be better. You will be a better human being. And hopefully you will serve our ashram, spread the message of our guru." Then the boy said, "But will you post me abroad?" So that is also an investment. 2 years I will do anything you like in the ashram. I will wash the dishes also in the kitchen. But uske baad. So various hopes and desires. Man lives in hope, goes an old saying. All of us. In other words, see, ghoom firke as they call it, in going round and round, we are hitting at one thing. Let me illustrate it a little bit. Every time we come to a certain conclusion of who we are, how we are we good, are we bad, are we successful, or are we a failure, how far have we come, how much more to go, thought machine is active. Thought is like a machine. Gut, it is going. It doesn't stop. And then we come to a conclusion. I have come this far and I have some more to go. But when will it happen? Will it happen in a year? Will it happen in 10 years? This we do in the so-called mundane world, and we don't stop this in the so-called spiritual world. Only some terms are different. In the mundane world, maybe one asks, when will I become a millionaire? In the spiritual world, one asks, when will I get that moksha? When will I get liberated? When will I become a jivan mukta? Some such words. Or when will I become a true saint? So one meditator asks the other meditator, how far have you gone? And how long do you think I need to go? And one meditator even kept a mirror by his side. After 5 minutes, he would look into it. Is there Brahma Varchas on my face? I have meditated 5 minutes, which means 300 seconds, kuch kam nahi. Such an investment. Do I look now brighter? Why this concern? Why this restlessness? Why this unrest? Why this concern about future? Perhaps this is the best time for me to ask you. See, in such thinking, which all of us do, even speakers like me do, have I been speaking well? Concerned. So far I have somehow kept talking, but I am now going blank. Another 1 hour I have to tell something or else to these people. Bapre. What to tell them? So far, so good. A speaker also could have his worry. Whether, I am trying to say, in all fields. So I ask you this, in such a scenario, there is the clock ticking away, but thought machine concerns itself with time, and that is where psychological time is born. Clock time, that is by itself psychological time. What is psychological time? Let me put it this way, it is simply related to the desire to become. Sometimes you call it desire to become, other times you may word it differently. Desire to possess, desire to get something. Where there is no desire, there is no psychological time. But can you be free of desire by just saying, okay, tomorrow onwards I will not have desire? By deciding to not have desire, you will not be free from desire. Because that will become another desire. I want to be desireless. I want to be, so you sit before God, make me desireless. No, God, make me desireless. You ask like that. It is like I going and telling everybody, make me fall asleep. You people say, you then sit quietly, you will fall asleep. I won't sit quietly. Sabke paas jaakar, not allowing them also to sleep. Night 12 o'clock, give me sleep. So there is a contradiction in it. So there is the creation of time in the wanting to become. So I used a few words, and I think that should be enough at this moment. We are investing in this venture. This is an enterprise called the I. I am this, I shall become that, hopefully I shall become that pretty soon, and hopefully I shall not become something else. There is fear, there is hope. This thought process is something in which there is a continuous reinforcement. We are strengthening it again and again. There is a renewal. Now, atimuchya means we see the futility of this, we see the endlessness of this process, and by seeing so, atimuchya, we don't anymore invest. Even as there is the thought, but people may insult me. We notice that thought and we do not get agitated. That thought is not a pleasant thought. The thought that tomorrow 10 people may insult me is not a pleasant thought, agreed. But if you watch that unpleasant thought without further reaction, then atimuchya takes place. Atimuchya means abandoning identification. The good old habit says, you better be concerned. 10 people will come and call you names. Do something about it. The good old habit asks you to get agitated about what may happen tomorrow. It sends you back and forth, past, future, past and future, past and future. It drags you. The good old habit doesn't allow you to stay in the present. Eckhart Tolle or Tolle wrote that book, right? The Power of Now. Everybody liked that book, but even after that, nobody uses the power of now. People like essays on the power of now, but they don't want the power of now. There was a book on the power of silence. Everybody has talked about it endlessly. how nice this book is, you must read it and let us have a discussion on it, and this evening let us get together and copy it. And such a noise was created on that book on silence. But that is our nature. That is nature of contradiction in our life. So the power of now, Eckhart Tolle wrote. But you and I believe in the power of tomorrow, in the power of yesterday, and not in the power of now. This now is the Shrotrasya Shrotra. Yesterday and tomorrow is personality. Attachment to personality, whether in materialistic sense or even in spiritual sense. I must be a wise man. I must be regarded by people in the town as a good Vedantin. I must be regarded as a morally upright person. So there also you are worshipping an image. A higher Vedantic meaning to the 10 Commandments is that don't worship the image. The image is a vritti. Worship pure consciousness. In fact, Paramahamsa Yogananda gave another simple interpretation to that commandment. When Moses got 10 commandments from God, one of them said, don't worship me in any image. And Paramahamsa Yogananda said, what God meant was, never make the mistake of imagining that I am limited to an image. It was not against Murti Puja. It was against the error of imagining God is limited to the Murti. Hinduism doesn't make that mistake. Hinduism doesn't say when you worship a Shivalinga or a Murti, you have Parshvanath or Mahavir. Hinduism or Jain or so many Indian religions, they do not say God is limited to that. That is a symbol, that is a pratika, that is a pratima. It is a stepping stone. So we are not violating the 10 Commandments. When you go by Yogananda's explanation, if any of us think that God is limited to this stone, 2 inches left of that stone there is no God, 2 inches right side of that stone there is no God, my God is limited to this, that would be a Himalayan blunder. In fact, Kena Upanishad is going to touch upon it within 2 mantras. Atimuchya dhiraha, as it was said, pretya asmal lokat. So, attachment, call it identification with a thought created image of who we are is the problem. Give up that attachment, give up that identification, not by deciding, not by making a birthday resolution or New Year resolution. 2009 January 1, let us have a Vedanta resolution. So you call up some Swamiji and give us, sir, a Vedanta New Year resolution. And that poor Swamiji opens a book. Okay, this time you resolve to abandon, to drop, as the Swami Sarvananji says, relinquish. To relinquish identification with body and mind. So you take it, okay. And maybe holding each other's hand, a group of you stand in some nice place and say, we resolve solemnly that during 2009 we are going to relinquish identification with body and mind. And then you celebrate. Next day, what was your resolution? Wait a minute. We have decided to abandon, give up identification with body and mind. Whose body and mind? With Swamiji's body and mind. We are no more going to take Swamiji's body and mind as our body and our mind. mission accomplished. Okay, even if you don't make that silly mistake, you say our own body and mind, by simply memorizing some words and by making a resolution, not much is going to happen. Then how is it going to happen? Finally, goom firke. After all is said, it comes to living in alertness. If you are alert, you will yourself see that this ceaseless attachment to I, me, my, what I got, where I went, what I ate, what I saw, what I wrote, where my name came, where my picture came, who talked about me, who praised me. Ceaseless attachment to this. We all have it. We all want to be talked about. We all want to be praised. We all want to be paid attention to. Attention seeking, right? We all want to be shown some care, some love. Even for a moment, pal bhar ke liye bhi, Zoota hi sahi, as that old line says. Some love, koi bhi hame dikhaye, zoota hi sahi. With Devanand we also dance. Right? Upanishads are talking about that only in a serious language. That is a very, fun. Romance. Bollywood romance has its own charm. But here, in a more generalized way, Upanishads are talking about it, that we pour our energies into gratifying this I, me and my, ati muchya, by seeing that this is an exercise in vain. No matter how much we do, go for plastic surgery and go for, manipulating accounts, go for millions of things, and let us say we achieve something, it will again go. Nothing is permanent. Nobody can avoid old age, nobody can avoid disease, nobody can finally avoid death. So this attachment to I, me and my is such a silly affair. To see this is enough. When you see this, there is no need to orchestrate matters by resolution. By resolving is not necessary. You see and you change. Therefore, Krishna ji at a place says, to see what is transforms what is. आपके अंदर जो है उसको यदि आप सही रूप में देखते हैं, वो देखना ही आपके अंदर बदलाव ले आता है, वो देखना ही. And Shankara's Vedanta also emphatically says, Jnanam is the word used. I take liberty to translate it as right understanding, right seeing. Jnanam is complete in itself. It doesn't need any sahakari, sahayogi. That is, the context in Shankara Bhashyas is karma. You have Upanishad Jnana, but you should do some Agnihotra. Some karma kandis used to argue before Shankara. Mandana Mishra and a whole lot of people. They argued vehemently with Acharya Shankara that this Jnana is not complete. This Jnana accompanied with some karma, that is yajna, yaga and so on, together will give liberation. And in the commentaries of Adi Shankara, there is a very strong condemnation, khandana of what is called there Samuchchaya Vada, Karma Jnana Samuchchaya. In those days, Shankara said that, well, all this karma perhaps can prepare you, but finally, when you gain that insight, don't tell me this insight with assistance of some karma that you did in the morning gave you freedom. Insight, samyak darshana, seeing rightly, by itself gives you freedom. And in recent times, a number of teachers, as an example, J. Krishnamurti, emphatically says, no religion with all their rituals and all their conventions, customs, hierarchies, all their institutions, no religion with all their symbols can set you free. Your understanding yourself alone, without any other help, will set you free. Seeing what is will set you free. Seeing. S-E-E-I-N-G. Seeing alone. Nothing else required. No support required. And this is a very, very important revelation. As old as the mountains, but it echoes repeatedly through new sages and new masters. So this second mantra is complete in itself. If some of you pack up and leave the camp after this, you have not missed anything. For the second mantra has the gist of the whole Kena Upanishad. Couple of other mantras also would again give it. But the second mantra, as we said, Atimuchya dhiraha amrita bhavanti, is complete. It's a seminal mantra. It has in it the ability to launch, ability to produce everything else. Like a little seed of a banyan tree, when sown and watered, can become the whole banyan tree. A mantra like this from the Upanishads can set fire to the huge structure of worldly bondage. One lighted matchstick falling upon a huge haystack of grass sets it on fire. And in a couple of hours, the whole thing is turned to ashes, or even before that. Such is the power of these mantras. But this mantra is not for japa. The word mantra many times, mantra, Om Namah Shivaya, mantra given to you. That is for japa. But the Upanishad mantras are not for japa, not for repetition. Upanishad mantra is meant for you to gain an insight, to see your life in a new light. See your light in a new life, new light, everything changes. The whole world goes topsy-turvy. There is this expression, Amrita Bhavanti. I need not elaborate more on it, for without touching that word, I have said it already. When the ego dies, when your attachment to this I, me and my goes away, you become deathless. Doesn't mean the body doesn't die. The body will die, let it die. But who are you? Are you the body? Swami Chinmayanandaji often said, every body dies, but nobody dies. Every body dies, but nobody dies, because nobody is the body. So who are you? Who am I? Pure awareness has no death. So to give up identification, first we say body and senses. Actually, it is identification or attachment to the thoughts. Because like in a movie show, you all know, every second, how many? Some 16 or 18 or 30, 20, so many frames quickly come. If the movie reel were to slow down, then you will see it is different. In the movie you see a horse galloping. If the movie were to slow down, the projector's movement were to slow down, there is no horse galloping there. There is a horse and you see. After a second, there is another horse, number of stationary horses. And then you say, that 10th horse was a few inches this side. But it's all stationary horses. In the same way, the flow of thoughts is such. In quick succession, there is the identification, process of identification. I want to be famous. I want people to talk well of me. I want somebody to praise me. I want somebody to inquire about me. I want somebody to talk about me in the party. So on. Tuck, 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 tuck. Thoughts come so quickly. What can break? Maharshi Ramana said, inquire. If you cannot inquire, he gave a second option. Plan 2. He said, observe your breathing. If you observe every in-breath and every out-breath, then the machine of thought slows down. Then you will be able to get a little handle. Otherwise, the thought machinery, your own, but like Frankenstein's monster, hijacks you. Your own thought machinery takes you away, makes you meet with accidents. Amrita bhavanti, they become deathless, they are not bound by time. T.S. Eliot, yesterday I quoted, I looked up again in the book. The exact words are, to be conscious is to be not in time. That is the set of words in his poem called Burnt Norton. In that famous work called Four Quartets, T.S. Eliot, there is a section, Burnt Norton. In that there is this line, to be conscious is to be not in time. That is Amritattva. That is immortality. For you are not in time. Time is in you. Time is in you. You are not in time. That is what we call upside down. All along you feel you are in space, you are in time. But in Vedanta we say in self-knowledge, in Bhakti we say in love of God, the world is in you. You are not in the world. So elaborating this, the Rishi of Kena Upanishad says, Na tatra chakshur gacchati Nava gacchati no manaha Na vidmo na vijanimaha Yathaitada Once more, na tatra chakshur gacchati Nava gacchati no manaha Na vidmo na vijanimaha Yathaitada In essence, this seems to say the same matter in slightly different language. Na tatra chakshur gacchati. Eyes do not go there. Na vag gacchati. Speech does not go there. No manaha. If you don't follow Sanskrit, the Rishi is ready to tell you in English also. No manaha. No is not English. It is na only with what they call a nipata. In Sanskrit there are some single syllable words. U. U is a nipata. This U came in the second mantra also. Vachoha vacham sa U pranasya prana. Incidentally, U is also name of Lord Shiva. Shiva has some cute, very, very short names. One of Lord Shiva's names is U. And that is why Parvati is called Uma. For Ma is not only mother, but it also Ma means wife who takes care of the husband like mother did all this time. So Uma is explained as Oha Ma iti Uma. Like Guru Shabda, Guruhu Guru Guravaha. In sixth case it becomes Guroho. So U also you can decline. Uhu U Avaha. Un. Guruna becomes Una. Una Ubhyam Ubihi. Ave Ubhyam Ubhyaha. Oho Ubhyam Ubhyaha. Oho. Guru becomes Guruoho, so this becomes Voho. Oho, Voho, and Unam. Au, Voho, Ushu. U, just one letter. You can decline in 7 cases. Sanskrit has these cases, first case, second case, third case, up to 7th case. Those of you who have studied Sanskrit grammar have memorized it. Rama, 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 Ramam, Rama, Rama, Ramena, Ramabhyam, Ramaihi, Ramaya, Ramabhyam, Ramebhyah. Ramat, Ramabhyam, Ramebhyah, Ramasya, Ramayoho, Ramanam, Rame, Ramayoho, Rameshu, He Rama, He Rama, He Rama. You would have done this. So for Ravi, so for Guru. So these are all at least, 2 letters, 3 letters. But who is Lord Shiva? In Shiva Sahasranama, another place, his name is E. So if sometimes out of desperation, if you say, E, Lord Shiva may come, what happened? Can I help you? You say, why did you come? You called my name. E, you said, E is his name. If you say, ooh, he will come. Anyway, here it is not Lord Shiva's name. It is Nipata. It's just a particle. Second mantra also had it. In third mantra, no came that way. Na plus U is no. No manaha. Na vidmaha na vijanimaha. We don't know in a general way. Na vijanimaha. We don't know it in a very specific way. So just like in English also sometimes we say the same thing in 2 or 3 ways to emphasize. I don't know, I have no idea, I just have no direction. Like that 2-3 times we say, na vidmaha, na vijanimaha. Or you take this na vijanimaha with the last part, etad yatha anushishyat iti na vijanimaha. We also don't know this truth. And what is more, we do not know how to put across this truth. So this may almost be like a disappointment to you. You go to a magnificent hospital and walk through the grand corridors of it and wait for 1 hour at the door of the specialist, and then finally are led in to the specialist's chamber by a very pretty receptionist, and already they have told you how much is the fees you have to pay. And finally, inside that beautiful, sophisticated chamber, the specialist says to you, we don't know what your disease is. We just don't know what your problem is. Please go. And the receptionist leads you out, and she also says, yeah, it is sad our specialist doctor could not know. Whatever it is, on the way, pay the fees and go. Fees you have to pay. You would be utterly disappointed. So is it the case like that? Na vidmaha, na vijanimaha. You may take your hand to your head. This is anticlimax. As he suggested a while ago, we should have packed and left. We should not have waited for this mantra. which takes us now to disappointment, abyss of disappointment after the peak of apparent fulfillment. No, the Rishi uses this language because, as the first part of this mantra went, the truth that he has attempted to talk about is never, never, never the object of senses or mind or any faculty. Na chakshuhu gacchati. It can never be seen. But what about some visions that you and I have? Well, visions are part of the game. A vision is not of truth. Truth cannot be object of a vision. A vision is a manasa vyapara. Vision of Krishna or Rama, vision of blue light, or you go into a trance and listen to flute. It may happen and nobody condemns it, but that is not the ultimate knowledge. Ultimate wisdom is not a vision. And no word can describe it. Na vak gacchati. Vak is speech. In fact, each of these little expressions is so significant. Great teachers have talked volumes on, for example, just this na vak gacchati. To give you a gist of or a quick glimpse of what they have talked at such great length, I would say that they have touched upon humanity's tremendous attachment to word in the first place. Word. So even Microsoft named their software Word, MS Word. And they took it from the Bible, possibly. Bill Gates would never make the mistake of acknowledging it because he may lose some business if he, but in much likelihood they took it from the Bible, for the Bible also has this statement. First there was Word and the Word was with God, and there's some poetic line. Those of you who have read a little Bible know. Word. Or before the Bible, the Vedas talked about Shabda. From Brahman, there first came Akasha, and the quality of Akasha was Shabda. Tasmadva etasmad atmanaha akasha sambhutaha akashad vayuhu vayor agnihi. In Taittiriya Upanishad, some of you have learnt it. Agneya rapaha, water from fire, adbhyaha prathivi, earth element from the water element, prathivya poshadayaha. There is a sequence. In Christianity, in Islam, in Hinduism, in many major religions, there is a book of Genesis or a book of how the universe came into being. And students and teachers of comparative religion have pointed out that very interestingly everywhere, word or sound, Shabda, has been given a very high place, next only to God. Okay, leave all that. That is all the scriptural stuff. Look at your real life. You look at your daily life. You don't have to be a scholar or an intellectual. Even an ordinary man, an ordinary woman attaches tremendous importance to word, the spoken word. By word we mean descriptions. By word we mean labels. An ordinary woman, suppose is told, your son has gone to Bombay and he is now a manager in an office. The word manager will fill the mother's heart with joy. Oh really? मेरा बेटा बम्बई गया है और बम्बई में मैनेजर है. She will go to the whole village, mera beta manager hai. Next day she may come to know that he is not paid anything for some time. Company suppose does well, he will be given. Right now he has to work. But manager to banaya hai. Chalega, झूठा ही सही. Manager. Designation. In many companies, people are content with the designation, even if there is not a single rupee increase. Designation, some position. I must be secretary of anything. If not anything, I must be secretary of the unemployed youth organization of Kandivali. Berojgar, or whoever, but I am the secretary of their Sangha. So, this is a word. I am this, I am that. See, we talked of desire. Desire, if you notice, to a large extent, is not about any asli cheez. Many times desire is for a word. I grew up in a small town in Karnataka, and that time when I was a small boy, there was one family and their son was in Bombay. And somebody in Bombay those days in 1960s was a big thing. Unka beta Bombay mein hai. Be careful while walking in front of their house because their son is in Bombay. But slowly, I was a small boy, but I overheard people talking in my house. They were talking in whispers. That son, he is in Bombay, no doubt, but father has to send 200 rupees every month. So, वहाँ ज़्यादा नहीं कमाता है वो. To keep him in Bombay and tell the whole town, हमारा बेटा बम्बई में है, the father has to send 200 rupees. And in front of our eyes, that what you call prodigal son. The prodigal son returned home. And even now he must be there. His father must be dead now. Word, Bombay. Or later on it became UK, Europe. It's all word. What is in UK? What is in Europe? What is in USA? The sun rises in the east there also. And why? We know countless cases are there. Nowadays, almost every 10th home perhaps has somebody in Europe, America, Australia, and we know number of cases where there is so much of misery, so much of difficulties. Many are returning. Many come and go back, 3 times returned. But you think of it, whether it is car, house, dress, the word has tremendous significance. What you call branded jewelry, branded goods, branded dress even, designer dress, they call it. So once that word, this is made by such and such designer, in human life, it is not so in animal life, it's not so in plant life, but in human life, the word makes, in corporate world you call it brand establishing brand value, and there is a whole science about it. So again I am digressing to hi-fi stuff. In a very simple life of even in village life, without talking of Bombay and New York or London, etc., within village life also, in our human life, word plays a significant role in making you smile as well as making you cry. Shabda. And therefore, people with gift of the gab, writers, speakers, etc., have had a lot of advantage. Some time back, I think the Shyam Benegal brought out a movie. Some of you perhaps saw it. There is one boy who writes letters for everybody in the village recently. What is that called? Welcome to On that movie there is a welcome to Sajjanpur. One boy who is able to write well. His job is, he works for a post office, but he writes letter also for you in the village because there is a lot of illiteracy. So a young man falls in love with one young woman there. Both are illiterate more or less. The young man rushes to this boy in the post office and tells him, you write a love letter for me, I will. And this post office boy writes fantastic poetic word, power of word. And this man takes it. And he perhaps cannot read it, but somebody reads and says, this is very well written. Then he goes and drops it in that girl's. Instead of reaching the girl, it reaches that girl's father-in-law's hand. And that fellow comes with a stick. Anyway, all by word, because rosy words were written, poetic words were written. And because of those poetic words, tremendous amount of emotions were aroused. If the same were written in dull and drab words, if the post office boy wrote in very simple, dull words, देखो अपन को मैं शादी करना है तुमसे, like that, 2 lines, then nothing would have happened, not much, सबका पगला कहीं का, they would have just thrown it out. But the post office boy wrote a very rosy, poetic love letter, and that generated tremendous. Look at your own life, and when somebody says a word, just watch. That man or the other lady who used that word might have meant something else, but the utterance of one word can generate some reactions in you. Word can generate a lot of reaction. Word is label. Word has great significance. So many of our divisions, human divisions, वो लड़का बम्बई का है, बम्बई is a word. ये लड़की ब्राह्मण नहीं है, it is said. That boy is, Mohammedan. Mohammedan is a word. When you actually see that boy, lot of your notions may go in thin air. But first you take the word Mohammedan, Brahmin, Bombay ka ladka, some such, and each word comes charged with meaning. And who charges them with meaning? Who loads meaning? Your own conditioned mind. Therefore, to not get affected by word is like being free from the power of mind. You are free of mind itself. If somebody says to you, you are such an idiot, and you listen to that, but do not get swayed, then I'll say this and conclude. On one hand, you have refused to react to the word, but in order to not react to the word, what you have done is, you have risen above your own conditionings. You heard the word idiot, and agitations could have risen in you, but you looked at your mind and stood apart from your mind. That is atimuchya. You stood apart. And truth, as the Rishi says, is not touched by word. And those of us who put word in its right place, not more, not less. Word has a utility. Use the words where needed, but do not get carried away by words. Do not get attached to words. Do not react to words. Words are just words. They are not truth. Then you will find you have such unshakable dimension to your living. You are then unshakable. We'll examine tomorrow. Just a minute of silence, and then we leave the hall quietly.